I think at the end of the day, it's not who has the most money, but who enjoys the best life that really matters. Most attorneys who are younger or, at that 8, 9, 10-year stage trying to make partner, I don't think they really think through how important a good lifestyle is.
Welcome to the You Are a Lawyer podcast. Bob Hartmann, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks. Enjoying the lovely weather in Southern California today. So it's all good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm excited. So, Bob, you reached out because you wanted to share your story. You are a lawyer practicing in California, and I want to hear all about it. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
My background, well, let's see. I'm a UCLA graduate, meaning I have no football team to really root for anymore. I went to Loyola Law School back in the 80s. I've been an attorney since 1987, so I'm getting to be an old guy. My practice is about 100% criminal defense. I handle federal cases all over the country, state cases in California and in some other states. One of the reasons I'm really appreciative to you, about being on the podcast is I'm putting out a book in the next couple of weeks called Making It Rain, The Art of Building a Successful Law Practice. And so one of the things in my old age I've sort of morphed into, surprisingly, is I actually turned out to be a really good rainmaker. Not something I expected. I always wanted to be the best trial lawyer I could be. And for some reason, I learned how to bring in cases, and a bit of a story how I decided to write the book. But we have this book coming out, and it's really educational for young lawyers and for unhappy lawyers at other firms who are just afraid to leave and start on their own because I don't know how to bring in any business. And the book is really soup to nuts on how to do that.
Oh, I'm so excited. You said a lot of things there. First of all, lawyers are salespeople, and it drives me crazy when they say that they're not. And I'm like, you are selling yourself every single day, everywhere. In an interview, you're selling yourself. When you meet a client, you're selling yourself. You are always selling yourself. I typically record in my basement studio, but my husband still is on a work call. That would have been selling myself in a different way.
Yes, yes.
But you're always selling yourself. So I love that you wrote this book to pretty much tell lawyers, hey, if you want to be the rainmaker, this is how you can do it, right? Let me share the things that I've done. Now, I will say, Bob, I never thought of being a rainmaker with white collar crimes. I thought about it with personal injury or torts. So give us some more detail. How does that work?
That's a great question. I think that I think what the thoughts are about how to network and how to market and how to attract clients and how to attract referral sources. Although I'm a criminal defense lawyer, I think it applies across the board. Having empathy for clients, having empathy and taking great care of referral sources, scaling a business in that way, I think is really a relevant thing to any kind of business. I think for me, the particular thing that I'm interested now in the later part of my career is I've always, I've been on my own essentially since the early 90s. I've had a criminal defense practice. All I do is criminal defense. I don't do other cases. And I think that what I hope to teach younger lawyers is how to use common sense, how to not be afraid to go out on your own, how to educate yourself to be really good at rainmaking so you're not stuck in a job that you don't like. For me particularly, at this point, one of the things I don't like doing anymore about being a sole practitioner is all the admin. I have great admin help, but I still do a lot of it, and I would love to, at this point, start a white collar practice for a big national law firm that's looking to, not lose money in referring these kinds of cases to other people. So for me, I think that this book would really explain quite well to any large firm why a person like me would be a great addition. But again, I think the book is primarily designed for those people who say, you know what, I'm going to stick in this dead end job because I'm afraid I can't bring in clients. To me, helping them is great.
Yeah, a lot of times when people come on this podcast, they fall in two categories. They love practicing the law and they just do some other stuff on the side, or they took a really big risk and changed their career and they want to tell everyone. And so it sounds like you've been enjoying your career, but you also want to encourage people that, hey, you can enjoy your career too. So I think that's a unique place to be.
Yeah, I think for me, the motivating factors were two. I think during COVID, for some reason, my practice just exploded during COVID. We have this joke going around that, well, people were cooped up with each other. So, boy, there was a lot of domestic violence going. I mean, sad to say, I don't mean to laugh about it, but, some truth to that. And I think the other thing is I have a daughter who's a first-year lawyer. She's working for a lovely, nice firm. And for me, I really want her to understand from her dad why I never was in a law firm. I never accepted a situation where partners required me to be there from 9 to 5. My daughter was a softball player, high school, college. I coached her a lot during the years. And it was important to me to be able to go to her tournaments, to be able to go to her 2 o'clock practices or 3 o'clock practices, not have some partner telling me what to do. And quite honestly, what I didn't like was bringing in a case and they get 90% of it. And I got to work on it. So these are sort of the motivating factors for me.
So I appreciate the storytelling, but also with you being you're making it sound real easy.
It's
Being a
not totally
lawyer,
easy.
yeah,
Yeah.
being a lawyer and then running a business are different. So a lot of people can't make that jump to not having anyone over them because they don't want to learn the other parts, right? How did you motivate yourself to say, if softball is that important, I have to figure it out?
That's such a good question. I appreciate you asking that question. My parents were always involved with me playing Little League growing up or basketball or football, whatever, right? And for my daughter, one thing that really cements our relationship is both of our love of sports. I love softball. I love baseball. Played a little bit when I was younger. So when she was 6 years old, the opportunity to be her coach, because I know something about the game and I can actually teach it, versus other parents who just want to help but don't know how to teach it. I wanted her to be good, and I thought it was be good for her self-esteem and growing up and da da da. And she became a really, really good player. And so as we went through middle school and high school, I wanted to continue to coach her. And even when we got into college, she had a college coach, obviously, but I wanted to continue to help her. So it was very, very important for me that I not be tied down to a desk. I'll give you an example. When you're in sports, if you're pretty good at it, colleges invite you on recruiting trips. And so I remember back, when she was a junior in high school, my daughter and I would go for 2 weeks at a time to the East Coast, visit 9 or 10 colleges that were recruiting her. And we did that a couple times. And we would go and play in tournaments back there and things like that. And I would go. I literally did not miss one of her games in high school or college. And for me, as her dad, that has made us closer than anything. We have some really funny stories about that. And I think at the end of the day, it's not who has the most money, but who enjoys the best life that really matters. Most attorneys who are younger or, at that 8, 9, 10-year stage trying to make partner, I don't think they really think through how important a good lifestyle is. The divorce rates for lawyers, the suicide rates for lawyers, the drug usage for lawyers is so ridiculously high. And I think a lot of that is because people don't like their jobs. So if people just have the knowledge to figure out what do I need to do, A through Z, to leave and start my own, not worry about money for 6 months, I think that's an enormous, enormous thing that I can help people with. Listen, it's not something you learn in law school, right? You learn how to do contracts and what a tort is and what the Fifth Amendment is, but you don't learn how to bring in business and run a practice.
Yeah.
Sorry about the long answer.
No, I love it because her softball games were so important to you. You made sure you had the time so that you could continue to coach her. I'm excited for your book to come out because there are a lot of people who would never call themselves rainmakers, but they probably would be really good at it, right? They probably were just like, that's not me. I leave that to so-and-so down the hall. They bring in the business. And it's like,
Right.
well, you can do it, right? Um,
Yeah.
One thing that you said
Absolutely.
that really stood out is that A to Z, there's going to be steps. I think for lawyers, we're like, but didn't I already do all the hard work? And it's like, no. Now you have to learn A through Z as the attorney or as the business owner or as the practice owner or manager or whatever. So are these the things that you wrote about in your book?
Yeah, literally things like if you're in a big firm and you're at 7 years and you wake up one morning and realize you're never going to make partner, and you know what, you have the epiphany, okay, I'm going to leave. Well, this is what you do, and then there's a checklist in the book, literally every single thing you need to do. So 6 months, let's say you decide one morning, I'm leaving. Well, you don't leave that day. You start laying the groundwork though, 6 months to a year down road. And here's the things you do. How to find the right office space, how to find the right types of other attorneys to work with. Do you want to work with attorneys who do the same thing as you or different things than you so you can begin a referral relationship? How to treat clients that come into the office, how to leave your law firm the right way, not burning bridges, because these folks can be referral partners down the road. What is a networking group or a marketing group going to do for you? How much furniture to buy? Should I have an assistant? Should I have a paralegal? What type of case management system should I have? Where should my office be? How to set up a bank account? What does the state bar require from me for my trust account? All of these things we discuss in the book, and there's literally a checklist, that's in the book, and you can just literally go right down it. And if you're willing to do it and then learn the lessons of the book, in my opinion, you cannot help but be successful.
So is this a textbook or is it a book, a nonfiction book that anyone can pick up?
It is not a textbook per se. It is just a regular old book. Anybody, as I understand it, it's coming out in a couple of weeks. I think it's going to be available at bookstores, and I think you can order it online. It'll be on my website, so people can order. It mentioned an interesting point though. My daughter had the really interesting idea of contacting law schools because this issue of the business side of being a lawyer and running a practice is not taught in law schools. And so she had the really good idea of, you ought to contact my old law school and see if this is an interesting book that they might want to either offer to students or offer a class. And then this is the book. And wow, that's pretty interesting. So I don't know if it'll be a textbook, but it might be something I hope maybe they'll use in law schools a little bit.
Yeah. I asked because 2 years ago I spoke at my law school and they had a course called Law Office Practice. And I came in and I talked
Interesting.
about, yeah, and I worked at a couple big law firms and I explained what I did and how I started a new department because that's really hard. It was really controversial because law firms do not, you might acquire a new practice. You don't really just start a new department within. They would probably love that book. So that's why I was wondering.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, out of the mouths of babes come wisdom, right? Whatever the term is, right? And it's like, that's not a bad idea. And it's interesting, like I said, I graduated from law school in, oh my God, 86. Okay, and maybe now they are touching upon it a little bit, but literally at my law school, there was nothing. And so I remember some friends who graduated but couldn't get jobs at law firms. And they started, they just hung up their own shingle and they struggled. I mean, for years. And some of them decided not to be lawyers anymore. And it's really a shame. They're quality individuals. I thought could have been great, but you know what? There was just nothing to teach them back in the day. It's good to hear, though, what you said, that maybe law schools are starting to think about that a little bit.
They are. They are starting to. I did go to a school that was a little more progressive, and we had like an entire evening program where they knew people were working and they probably wanted to hang their own
Yeah,
shingle afterwards. So it was a little bit different. But
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, back in my day, it was all about, everybody competing with each other to get, to get to a top 10 law firm. It was just so competitive. Nothing like that at all.
Yes. Okay. So, Bob, I want to know if I was starting over right now. You said your daughter is a first year
Yes,
associate or law student?
first year associate.
Okay. So I'm starting first year associate. I get to the end of that first year. Okay, I think I could do this myself. What do you say? What do you say?
Great question. Great question. And let's assume you're working at a law firm already.
Yes, correct. Already working at a law firm.
Okay. So I think what I would do is just start talking with my friends. And I would just say, hey, I'm thinking about this maybe in 6 months or a year. Can I count on you to refer me whatever, cases you get? And one of the things you've got to remember is that it's not just a one-way street. To become a really effective networker, you have to be able to give cases as well as receive cases, right? So it's not just a one-way thing. So you begin a business relationship with all of your friends. You sort of talk with them and you understand that at least those people will refer you business. Maybe what you do is you start going through your law school friends and you start having the same conversation with them. One thing you've got to do is keep it quiet. Obviously, you don't want your current firm, to hear anything about it. I think the next thing would be to figure out, as a first year, figure out a way to join a networking group. There's these groups like Provisors, there's all these different marketing groups out there, right? I think Latemps or something like that. And basically, maybe what you do is you join one of them and you begin to develop your own relationship with other lawyers who are also out to network. And one of the benefits, especially to a young lawyer, is to go to meetings like that and learn how to sell themselves in 3 sentences. To stand up in front of strangers and to say, this is what I do, and this is how I'd like to help you make business. And one of the things that I've talked to my daughter quite a bit about is whenever you're talking to a lawyer about beginning a referral relationship, you always let them talk first. Tell me all about you. How can I help you? Da 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 da. And then the conversation will gradually morph over to yourself, but you've shown them you care about them, right? And that's just an example of how you really effectively do that. And I would kind of get her started on a path like that. Now, your question is so good because I love that she's in a law firm right now because she is learning how to be a lawyer and not having to worry about networking marketing just yet. When you're first year, not too much pressure about bringing in business. Just learn how to do a deposition, learn how to do this, learn how to do this, right? And I think that once you know how to do those basic things so that when a lawyer hires you, you're competent to do it yourself, then you're ready to go out. I love, though, that you can learn with other firms on their dime.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good way to put it, to learn on their dime, because if you graduated from law school and went straight to running your own business, you would learn, but you would bump your head a lot. And there's a lot of things that you could just learn by watching other people, right? Also, when you're in
Yeah.
a big firm, you get to see how different practice groups interact. Because I always thought I went to law school to be an environmental lawyer. I was going to work at the Army Corps of Engineers and make sure I
Yeah.
saved all the trees. And then
Yeah.
I had a construction law professor, and he was phenomenal. And I was like, maybe I could work on the oil side and make sure they just didn't hurt that many trees. And then I ended up in big law doing intellectual property. So
Wow, what a difference.
yes, but that practice really turned into where I am now because I've always been a people person. I probably just would have been talking to myself with the trees, right? So I think it made sense. But it's good to be in a firm because you do get to see all those different things in the different areas.
Yeah, but you know what? You said something really interesting there. You said about being yourself, right? Your first love was one thing, and you sort of were doing, you started doing another. You know, we're in this business for 40, 50 years, whatever it is, right? You darn well better be doing something you really like because it's a lot of work, it's a lot of time away from your family, and it's really an important thing you do. And so I think it's really important to like what you do. And part, at least for me personally, of liking what I do is not having to work other people's hours or when they want me there. As long as the work gets done, what do they care when I'm there? And what I really like about, being on myself is I don't give them, like I said, 90% of what I bring in. They're already doing really well. And, they're paying me to be comfortable, but they're not teaching me, most law, they don't teach you either. They don't teach you the things you need to do to be a rainmaker. And how silly is that? If you work like for you, if you work at Big Law, why would they not teach you how to be a rainmaker at Big Law? Because they're passing up an opportunity. Not only are you going to be a great lawyer for them, write great briefs, and really do good job for your clients, but if you could bring in other business, now you're really benefiting the firm. And I don't get why they don't teach that.
Well, at face value, it's like when you have that really good employee anywhere. Well, if they're too good or if they know it, they're going to leave. And it's like, but they're probably going to leave anyway. Or they're not because they respect you. So it's a gamble. But again, you and I don't think like this. We are risk takers. If you are this big employer, I want them to be valuable enough to write the brief correctly, but not so valuable that then they want to have their own shop. Like it's a gamble.
Yeah, yeah. But let me ask you a question. I'm just curious about your own experience.
Yeah.
Let's assume, you're doing a great job for your firm. You're doing a great job for your firm, right? As a partner, why would I not go up to you and especially if I have a sense of your personality and I have the sense that you're good with people, why would I not take a couple hours a week and work with you about how to develop your own client base? Because there's a way for us to work together. If you start bringing in enough, then we could talk about you being a partner. While you're getting there, we can give you a big enough percentage of what you bring in so that, the 50% that our firm gets from you, it offsets your salary.
Yeah.
I just don't get why they don't do that.
I spoke with a lawyer. She's in Alabama. Yeah, her name is Sarah Williams, and she is a litigator. She talked about building your own brand within a law firm and how her partners very early on were like, hey, you are kind of a rainmaker. What else can you do that we don't want to turn the entire firm into? But you can then bring in business and you basically have your own firm within the firm. And she is so innovative in the way that she maneuvered that. Because to answer your first question, I would say that a lot of firms don't do that because you really get that good mentorship when you're like a third or fourth year associate. I'm not showing you my personality as the first year. I don't care. I'm just glad you're giving me work. The second year, I'm not really doing too much. So it's going to take you some time to even figure out like what part is my personality? What part just got me to survive through law school? What part is this? I'm 11 years since graduation and I'm very different than I was that first year.
Oh, for sure you are. Yeah. But let me turn the question around on you. What if in your second or third year at the firm, they would have said to you, you know what, you're already working 50 hours a week working on your cases. What if you work 45 hours a week on your cases and 5 hours a week, maybe every Friday afternoon, you go to a networking meeting or a marketing meeting with one of the partners and you really learn how to bring in business. So instead of 50 hours, it's 45 hours. And let's say they commit to doing this for a year or two with you. Do you think that would have changed your course in any way?
No, I don't think I would have
Really?
taken up on it. I don't think I would have. I really
Yeah.
don't. I think maybe,
Interesting.
and that's surprising for even me to say because I was parliamentarian as a 2L and then I was editor-in-chief as a 3L. So I had extracurriculars, but I still don't think once I got there, I would have been like, I want to talk to you every Friday. I would have been like, are you sure? Because I remember you send the brief and you're like, okay, you're waiting for the response. It's been an hour and it's been 2 hours. You're like, I'm going to email them and ask if they got it. And you're like, stop.
Right. Yeah.
They are busy.
Right.
But, I taught this with my team once I had them to be like, hey, received, just to let you know. Okay, cool. Hey, got it. What? And so, because then you can alleviate that because the first year is like, what happened? Can I recall it?
That's what happens in my house.
So I don't believe that the first year I would have done it. Maybe the second year. I just don't. And this is really hard for me to admit because I really enjoyed law school. But that first year, you're just like, oh, I made it. Wait, the bar's not coming because you're still dreaming about the bar exam. You're still like, there's stuff. And you just don't have time to be like, okay, you're mostly like, all right, I got my $1,000 suit. Is it paid off on the credit card yet? Now what are we doing? I just would not have been, I wouldn't have been open to it. So maybe it's different now.
That's interesting. You didn't look at, yeah, but I want to throw something back at you when but now kids get out and they have $200,000 in debt, right? And that's the part that's really interesting that affects what we're talking about, I think, because, you know, you want to get that debt paid off as soon as possible. And I think that concerns holds people back from going out on their own because you know what? They got this guaranteed annual income. They figured out the number of years it's going to take to pay it back, and then maybe they'll do something, right? And you brought up a great point there. And for me, I look at it the opposite way. And you talked about being risk makers earlier, right? Risk takers earlier. Boy, I think you can get that loan paid off a lot quicker if your firm's not getting 90% of your case.
Okay, but see, this is where your book is going to revolutionize stuff because it's kind of like you're letting us behind the veil of what's happening on the other side. Because I did not think of myself as a business owner. Now that is laughable to me. Kyla, you have this incredible legal education that no one can ever remove. You can always find work. But I would not have called myself an entrepreneur or a business owner. I wouldn't have called myself even a risk taker. And now I think it's so silly. And I started this podcast while I was at the law firm and I started meeting really cool people who weren't practicing. And when I had replaced my salary and had to tell myself I was allowed to leave, I was still afraid. I was like, I'm a
Absolutely,
lawyer.
you were.
I can't. No.
Right.
And I was
Where's
like,
the next case coming from? Yeah.
I was like, but you've covered everything.
Yeah.
Can I really do that? And it's hard because I saw myself in this box. And so now to say that I have all the windows, I still have my education, it was hard for me.
What finally got you to not worry about that anymore?
Probably my kiddo going to kindergarten.
That
And
will
her
do it.
hours changed. And
Yeah.
my husband was like, I mean, you have the time, you have the space. I used to record at 9 p.m. while she was asleep. And so even to record with you right now in the middle of the day is a big jump from where it used to be. And so once I started to change that, and I was like, I don't have to stay up all night and do this. I can hire a VA. Wait. So it was really slow. It was when I think I went to a podcast conference and they said, podcasting is like the seed of entrepreneurship. And I was like, is that true? And then it kind of tapped back into, well, actually, you're a lawyer. You can do anything anyway. And so that was kind of what got me going.
Excellent. Yeah, but so you went through something similar, right? But you woke up one day and you said, I can do this, right? And we all go on a little bit of a different journey, right? But you had that epiphany that you can do it, and you've got this young daughter, and guess what? Now you can be with her more. And you're doing fine financially. Now you can be with your daughter more, and you can have a nicer quality of life. And like I said, I think earlier, at the end of the day, I went to a funeral yesterday for a lawyer I know, and it's not who has the most prizes at the end of the day. And getting people to understand that is not so easy sometimes.
Not so easy. That's why I have the podcast. And sorry to hear about your friend. That's hard.
Oh no, but it emphasizes the story for me.
Yeah. No, it does. It does. So,
Yeah.
Bob, I ask this question to every guest that comes on the show. What would you say to a young lawyer, 5 years practicing or less, or a law student about what they could do with their law degree?
What a great question. I would give them maybe two answers. The first answer would be anything you want. The great thing about a law degree is it opens up a million things for you. You could be you can have a political career, you could become a writer, you could be a professor. There's so many different things you can do with a law degree that you can't do without a law degree. I think my second answer would be if you go the lawyer route, you can absolutely live the life you want to live, not the life that's given to you or dictated to you by partners in a corner office. And that would be the message.
I love that. I love it. That's so good. And one more little tiny question.
Sure.
If I read your book, what's it called?
It's called Making It Rain, The Art of Building a Successful Law Practice.
So if I read your book and I say, okay, I'm not a rainmaker, do I still want to be a lawyer? Is there enough in there that can still help me be a lawyer, a good lawyer?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think, first of all, I wouldn't want anybody to say they can't be a rainmaker. Honestly, I don't believe that. I think that the word can't comes from just never learning about what it takes. Okay, but let's say you read the book and you go, you know what? My personality is I just don't like it. I don't want to do it. I'm very happy working for big law or whatever firm you're at, right? I think then that the lessons from the book would revolve around empathy. So in other words, understanding, for example, when you're representing a client, they are going through a really hard part in their life, whatever kind of case you're handling, a criminal case, a divorce, landscaping, whatever it is, right? They're going through a hard point in their life. So returning their phone calls promptly, same with emails, same with texts. The more that you show the client that you care about them and you're on top of their legal situation and you're always there for them, even if you're working in a big law firm, that's a great thing because you're going to represent the firm really well with that client. You're going to make the partner who assigned you the case look really good on, with that case. And then when it comes time for a bonus, or maybe they make you a non-equity, whatever it is, that might help you make a little bit more money down the road. But the act of making your clients happy is so important to what we do. And you know as well as I do, lawyers are at the very bottom of, who people respect. And I think if lawyers acted with more empathy towards clients, that would really go a long way on that point.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So read the book, and even if you decide, oh, it's too much work, because maybe you don't think I don't want to do it. Maybe you're just like, wow, it's a lot of work. Learn to be empathetic, because we do become a little transactional. I think
Yes, we do.
the law school conveyor belt kind of makes us that way, but we do become a little transactional.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Bob. I really appreciate this.
Well, thank you for having me. This was a really enjoyable time. And it was great to meet you.
Yes, thank you. You too.